it's very important to tell stories that are consistent with what you want on any subject that's important to you. And if you do that consistently enough, just as Sabrina is discovering, you will find your life tuning more and more in such a way that it includes more and more of what you want and less of what you don't want. Welcome to Worthiness Wednesday. I'm Perry Gruber, the Enlightenment Guy. For over a decade, I've helped people master their mindsets so they can create lives they love and get results without the burnout or the hustle. And today I want to talk about a new client of mine. She is a fantastic potential master of the positively focused practice. How do I know this? Because of the experiences she's going through and how quickly she's taking to the practice. This client is a medical student practicing to become a psychiatrist. She also happens to be from Palestine, so she has a lot of negative momentum within her belief constellation relative to her value as a person and the possibility of getting what she wants. The last characteristic about her that's really important to know is that she's transgender. And so she came to this practice desiring an alternative approach to the more clinical approach she's learning how to administer to her own patients. And one of the things we talked about in our last session is a fantastic demonstration of how powerful this practice is when you put it into practice in your daily life. Some of my clients struggle with putting it into practice in their daily life because they have worthiness issues. In other words, they don't believe they are worthy of receiving the results that naturally occur when they align with their broader perspective. But this client had a similar initial approach. When I offered her the first step of a 6-step process for mastering the basic practice, she balked a little bit because the first practice felt forced to her. She came to this session this last week, though, with a different approach, and it was masterful what she did. Instead of speaking the first practice in English, she spoke it in her mother tongue, which is Arabic. And I have to say, when I heard her speak it, it was really beautiful. But more important, for her, speaking this first homework in Arabic instead of English, not only moved her from it feeling forced to feeling more natural, but it created within her a resonance with the deeper part of herself, which had her produce the result that is guaranteed from the positively focused practice, which is increasing one's vibration to a high state of vibration aligned with positive expectation, joy, appreciation, freedom, and love. So she's been doing this initial practice for about 2.5 weeks now, and something remarkable happened between last session and the session we had this week. It was a testament to how powerful this practice is and how powerful each of us are as the creators of our reality. Let's get into what happened. So this client, I'm going to call her Sabrina. She has very disempowering beliefs around being able to find a mate and be married to that person. This is partly because she's transgender, but also because of her experiences in Palestine. As anyone would imagine, those kind of experiences developed in this client very disempowering beliefs that have led to experiences that have confirmed those disempowering beliefs. Now remember, this is so good. Any belief that you hold is going to create a reality consistent with it. So it's very important that you hold beliefs that are consistent with what you want to see in your life experience. When you do that, your life begins to reflect the belief back to you, and then you see improved life experience, or a life you begin to love, like I talked about at the beginning of this video. Sabrina was struggling because of her past experience with the negative experiences of living in Palestine and then coming to the United States and being in a foreign country, in a foreign culture that predominantly speaks a foreign language. She also has, I'm going to call it, a unique way of perceiving the world. Clinicians call it being on the spectrum, but that sets that perspective up to being something other than normal. But instead, the reason why I'm using it's a unique perspective of the world is because Sabrina has come into the world, like many who have this same perspective, to experience life on earth in a way that's unique to their core values. And Sabrina is doing this. So, because of this unique perspective, however, she's very sensitive to things like smells, conditions that she perceives among people, and expectations that she believes that others have of her. She believes that other people believe she should act normal, even though acting normal for Sabrina is really difficult because she has this unique perspective that is not normal, whatever that is. Anyhow, Sabrina has this strong desire as a trans woman to be married. And as a result of that, combined with her disempowering beliefs about being transgender, and also her disempowering beliefs around her experiences in Palestine, she doesn't believe that she can attract a partner. She doesn't believe that a male would find her attractive, even though she knows she's attractive and is objectively beautiful. So she decides, after doing this practice I was talking about a minute ago, she decides to go to the grocery store one day. And while she's driving to the grocery store, she says she gets lost. And she stops at this corner and asks a man to help her find the grocery store she's trying to get to. It just happens to be around the block. And so the man tells her it's around the block, and she drives over to the grocery store and parks in the parking lot. Unbeknownst to my client, the man hustled over to where she parked. He walked over to the grocery store and walked up to where she parked. And when she got out of the car, she noticed that the guy was there. Now, this could be a threatening situation, but my client was feeling pretty high vibing. And so when she saw the person, she smiled, and the guy asked her if she was single. Her response was that she was not single, even though she is. So when she told me this story, it was such a delicious story. When she told me this story, she was telling it from the perspective that this guy was a creep, that he had followed her from the corner into the grocery store parking lot in order to badger her and try and get her number so that he could have sex with her. I encouraged Sabrina, however, to look at this from a different perspective. Now, any story you tell about an experience you have is going to trigger within you a vibrational emanation, and that vibrational emanation will be associated with a particular emotion. And if you tell a story about an experience you have that generates within you negative emotion, that negative emotion is telling you that that story is not an empowering story. It tells you some other things, but I'm not going to go into those in this video. So when Sabrina told me the negative story that this guy was just wanting to have sex with her, I asked her, or suggested to her, that she tell a more positive story, a better feeling story. Not because the better feeling story is true or that the disempowering story is false, but because of the emotion that will emanate from her as a result of telling the better feeling story. Because in the same way that the negative story, the story that creates negative emotion in you, is telling you something important, a positive story is doing the same thing. A positive story is generating within you a positive high vibration. And that positive high vibration comes associated with a positive emotion. And that emotion tells you, this is so good, it tells you that the probable future reality you're aligning with when you tell that positive story is going to manifest in your future. What humans call the future. And so that's why I encourage my clients to be as positive as possible, because when you're positive in your viewpoint of life, your life has to reflect that positive frame of mind. So I suggested to Sabrina that this person had followed her into the parking lot because he found her attractive. And maybe he felt that she was the one. Or maybe he felt that he wanted to get to know her and was checking in to not barge in on a relationship that she might be in, even though she wasn't in a relationship. In other words, he was being very kind and considerate, while at the same time inquiring as to whether or not Sabrina was available. This could have been seen by Sabrina as a very positive indicator, which it was. It was an indicator, a reflection, showing Sabrina that the story she tells about herself, about being unattractive, or about the fact that men will never approach her, or that she will never find that guy that she's interested in being married to, this experience was showing her that indeed there are men out there who will find her attractive and will seek her out, even though she's trans, even though she's Palestinian. When I explained this to Sabrina, it took her a while to get that it didn't matter that the story I was getting her to accept was true or false. It didn't matter. What mattered was how she felt in telling the story or making the story her own. Because when she makes the story her own and she feels that positive emotion, and then if she holds to that positive emotion, her life experience will bring her more experiences that are like that until she ends up in the marriage she wants. This is the process of deliberate manifestation, deliberate creation. When you choose deliberately the thoughts you think and think those thoughts consistently, you eventually develop within you a chronic state of being. And that chronic state of being becomes your dominant vibrational state. And when that happens, your life experience has to reflect that back to you. It is a constant of the universe. Your life is a mirror dynamic. And so, describing to Sabrina this alternative story wasn't about lying. It wasn't about blowing smoke up her butt. It wasn't about not looking at the facts. The facts don't matter. What matters is your vibration, because it's your vibration, your dominant vibration on any subject, that creates the reality associated with that subject. As we move through the rest of this session, Sabrina lightened in her mood relative to that experience. We talked about a lot of other things in that session, all of which pointed to Sabrina really leaning into the practice. For example, even though she practices psychiatry as a resident in a medical program, she told me she knows that the substances that psychiatrists prescribe are supplemental. They're supplemental to the mindset that one can develop, which is the primary source of one's well-being. And I heartily agree. It is primarily your frame of mind, the stories you tell, the collection of stories you tell on any given subject that determine the reality you experience on that subject. And so it's very important to tell stories that are consistent with what you want on any subject that's important to you. And if you do that consistently enough, just as Sabrina is discovering, you will find your life tuning more and more in such a way that it includes more and more of what you want and less of what you don't want. What a great thing to know. Appreciate you watching up to this point. If you have a question, I'd be happy to answer it. Just put it in the comments. And in the meantime, I'll see you in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.